Before I start, I want to make it known this is definitely not an attack on Christianity at all. This is only a defense of atheism. I'm not an atheist actually. I don't even consider myself an atheist. But number one, I hate Charlie Kirk, and then number two, he's talking about the problem with atheism. The problem with atheism. They think it's so dishonest, and it's so like he's so wrong in his video that I just wanted to respond to it. So yeah, don't take this to heart, anybody. Let's continue.
We have the problem of evil. Atheists have evil no problem.
So what he's talking about is atheists cannot ground themselves in some sort of objective morality. So first off, I'd like to say and even if you assume that religion exists, you're like anyway, there is no objective morality, period. Okay, so we have all of these different religions. It's not just Christianity. So, and they all say different things about morality. So even if you do, people want to do this like proving God exists by all these different like arguments that just prove like the prime mover and contingency and all that sort of stuff. You can prove a God exists, and I'll probably make videos on that later. But then when it comes to like which one, I think there's a total of like 4 to 5 people. I'm exaggerating, but 4 to 5 people on the entire freaking planet that have actually gone through and examined like every single like at least major religion. And that's all I'm talking about. You definitely haven't done all of them, and really gone like, okay, like how can I prove this one and disprove this one and disprove this one? That's why you have faith. So with Christians, we can go in and be like, well, it wouldn't make sense for the disciples to lie about this, and I don't really want to think that they were hallucinating or whatever. No one's proved that God exists, that Jesus, no one's proved that Jesus exists, okay? No one's proved any religion. And then let's say that you did prove religion, because some of you who are stupid out there are going to go, well, actually, I do think I've proved my religion because someone told me that it was proved. Okay, since you were told that it was proven, or if you're that far into it where you really think you somehow have the proof for whatever religion you believe in. And it's not I'm just doing Christianity because that's what Charlie is. That's what I am. Even if you did prove that, you still have an unbelievable amount of diversity within like what people think their book says. And then on top of that, it's even weaker than what the atheists have, because it's just trying to figure out like, what do I think he's commanding me? What do I feel like this is commanding me? How do I interpret this part of the scripture? There is no objective morality. The only part of it, and I'll get to the only part that can be objective, and first, before I get to that, that's what I just said is what matters practically. Being able to determine this is good, this is good, this is good. Because everyone pretty much accepts the thing that I'm about to go into in a second about like I'll just tease it right quick. Getting an alt from an is. That's the only thing that religion could potentially give. Now I watched Alex O'Connor, who is a really good philosopher, probably my favorite ever. And I don't know a whole lot of philosophers. I'm not a big philosophy guy. I really like Alex O'Connor, and I really like religion and stuff, so that just naturally ties in. I don't know. I can't even name you like 5 philosophers, okay? Or anyway, but he has a video on that, and I wrote down kind of what I thought, and then typed down exactly what he thought at the very end on this Google document that I'm going to read in a second. But yeah, he says things like, even if you did have religion and like you proved a certain God and you proved all this stuff, even then you can't even really get an alt from an is, because okay, God is here. I'll just go and I'll read it right quick. So why should you do what God commands? Because it is good. And then why is it good? Is that because God commands it? That's circular. That's a circular argument. That's not. It's the same. You're like, well, God commands it. It's the same type of thing. You're just you can't really get an alt and prove it and ground it in actual logic. You're just kind of it's what God says, and I want to follow what God says, and I think it's what God tells me. Okay. Now, you might not be satisfied from that. I'm not even completely satisfied by that myself. Like I still want to say like it doesn't have to be an alt. It doesn't have to be an alt from an is. It can just be like an alt from an alt. But then it just goes around it. I don't want to get into that yet. That's real deep, but not real deep, but like it's just I haven't done enough research for it. So, but one second, let me go back. before, let me just reiterate, that's not even the part that matters. That's what I was saying earlier about, like, people agree on that anyway. If you have somebody that just totally disagrees, let's say they're not religious or whatever, they just totally disagree with doing what X, and besides, even with religion, how are you going to get people to accept that? Like, okay, maybe it's just objectively true that you should do what God does. Like, practically, you're not going to get in the real world. This is what he's talking about, and these people want to like point fingers at atheism, like, look, it's so evil, you can't tell people that they objectively do this. I mean, practically, they don't have to follow it anyways. They choose what they follow. And then with religion, it's like there's so much of it has to do with like where you were born. I mean, take anybody ever. Their religion has to do with, if not exactly the one that they were brought up with or whatever, then they happen to diverge and they happen to meet some social group or some forum online or something influenced them to do that. Like, absolutely no one goes in and like, all right, let me go ahead and, I don't really care about religion. Let me go ahead and research this religion, and then I'll come back and evaluate them all, and I'm going to go down. And people don't have time for that. That's not really. People go purely off of emotion in the real world, period. That is no debate. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Plus, the ought from an is thing, that's not even what Charlie Kirk goes into in this video. He doesn't even go that deep. He doesn't even know that distinction, and most Christians don't. The first time I really heard this brought up was by Alex O'Connor. Because, you know, most people do, like, they say that morality is, like, good and bad, and you know, just that, really. And he was like, well, you can program good and bad into a robot. So it's really about, like, you know, the robot can know good and bad, but the robot doesn't have this intuition to want to do what is good and not do what is bad. And so that, you know, you ought to do what is and then ought not do what is. You see what I'm saying? So getting that ought from an is. That is where, like, real morality comes from. But as you will see in this, that's not what Charlie Kirk is talking about. That's not, because, and the reason he does that is because this isn't a philosophy channel, and, like, that sort of stuff is just, like, hopefully you agree. If you don't, you're just being a hard ass. But all that stuff is really just for the philosophy channels and stuff. Like, people agree. If, like, we kind of assume doing with good. And there are some, like, few crazies out there who just like, oh, well, I'm not going to do what's good. I'm not. I just, but they're very rare. Like, this is not something we, again, practically are going to see in real life. It just seems like meaningless, you know, and people go, oh, no, actually, oh, and when you're doing that, you're coping. No, we do need to have we do need to, the reason Charlie Kirk is not doing that right now is because we just need to be able to define what evil is and what good is. That's what matters. And a lot of people do think that atheists can't determine that. And I'm going to explain how you can. Okay? So remember what I said. Charlie Kirk is not talking about the ought from is thing, mostly because that, like, is just for philosophy, guys. If you say no, you're coping, period. And if I get people in my comments doing that, I will spend an entire week trying to research and watch Alex O'Connor, and I will respond, because I cannot stand. So someone just do that just to ruin my week, okay? Please, because I'll do it. Because that sort of stuff, it is cope, and I cannot stand it. I literally cannot. Whenever they just try so hard to squeeze into every little, like, oh yeah, you can explain everything else away, but, like, look, you can't get an ought from an is. You don't have a God telling you to do that, and so you're screwed. Your entire worldview is screwed because you don't have a God telling you to do that. That's not what practically matters. What practically matters is what Charlie's about to say. That you cannot get bad. You cannot get evil. You cannot get, bad. Okay? Because I was trying to think of the opposite of good. From atheism. Watch.
You see, on the atheist side, they can't say that evil actually exists, because without God, if God does not exist, then we are nothing more than just a clump of cells, and there is no such thing as evil. You only know something is evil if you have good to compare it to. You only know something is right because you have a standard of right. So I guess he's technically right about the first part. It's fear-mongering, or not even fear-mongering, but, like, uneasy-mongering. How about that? With his, you know, stupid audience about, if we're atheists, then we're nothing more than just a clump of cells.
I guess so. If you just want to be like technically like, yeah, we're a clump of a lot of cells. I mean, a lot of freaking cells. Um. Anyway, but then the second part is let's see, and there's no such thing as evil. There's no such thing as an objective evil commanded by God. You only know something is evil if you have good to compare it to, and he's implying that like, well, you need an objective good to compare it to. No, you only know if something is right. Let's say good to keep it consistent. You only know something is good because you have a standard of good. He says, you're right, and so we can say we only know something is evil if we have good, and we can only have good if we have a standard of good. Okay, well, let's make one. Mine. And it used to be, and it is just preferences, technically. But we all, humans, pretty much have the same, like, not preferences for other people, but preferences for ourselves. So you look in human history and they had a preference to kill Jews. No, the Jews also had a preference to stay alive and to live a great life and everything, okay? You understand that? Is that clicking now? For people who use that as an argument? The Jews also exist and also have feelings and standards, and the simple like, well, whenever you want something good for yourself and it comes at the blatant expense of other people, especially on a mass scale like that, it doesn't matter that like, even if it was like more Germans benefiting than Jews, which it wasn't, but if it was more German greatness, feeling good, it's still, if it comes at the blatant expense of someone else and you are causing that for your goodness, that is like even worse than just having, feeling good about yourself with nothing else happening. There's like it's even worse. It should never come at the expense of someone else's standard of preferences and whatever. So it's suffering and pleasure. And then the only other thing that I've heard come up to ruin this for me was necrophilia. And so then, I changed it because, like, I'll explain it in case it's not clicking, and I'm sure it is. When someone, this is weird. I don't want to. Let's just say, in that act, okay, one person is benefiting, and no one is really like feeling any displeasure at the moment. You see what I'm saying? No one is. It's not any suffering there. It is only pleasure. However, what really matters is someone's like potential, and not only potential, but like their conscious preferences. Like when that person was conscious, they had a feeling for themselves that they would not want that to happen to their body. And if you don't know that, then if you don't know for sure, then there's always, and it's more than likely that was their preference, and you should respect that, their conscious preference. Before it's the same deal. It's and people who are like suicidal, there's a potential for them to have, and we know that this all exists, like these feeling good about yourself and everything, and when it's really bad, then just allowing them to like kill themselves or whatever, like you're supposed to, or not supposed to, we are to value like conscious pleasure and that sort of thing, not at the expense of anyone else, but that wouldn't, helping a suicidal person wouldn't be at the expense of anybody else. So you can set up standards of good and test them. We can, like, for example, like, and I saw another video, I think it was Ken Ham, talking about like, well, then it's just, if you're an atheist, then things are just preferences, right? And it's just all, he said, it's just all emotions. It's not emotions. Nothing I said about that right there, like pleasure and setting up a model. And I'll give you an example. It's not just emotions. So like people who grow up in some other society, because he was talking about what's good for this society is bad for the other. As I just said, even though it was in the Hitler society, even though the Germans, there were still Jews there. There were still Jews. And I know no one says anything about majority and minority. I never said that, have I? No. Okay? Like, it's just crazy how y'all just like ignore the Jews and ignore that sort of stuff in these arguments. They ignore the other people in it that are also involved in it. Okay? So you can't do that. But back to the emotion thing. Hopefully this mic isn't that bad. Also, if I want to, the thing I said about like suicide stuff, that might not be very satisfactory for somebody. I was just listening, thinking about what I said, and I don't know. I might want to go back over that, because it's not like, you might say like, you know, even though their preference is anyway, that like I don't know. I want to say that like let's say there were people that grew up in a society, they thought that gay people were it was bad. That's a bad thing. That's their emotion, right? Ken Ham would be like, well, it's emotional, and for them, it's good. That is how you should think. I go up to that person, and we start talking about it. Okay, like why do you think they could say something like it's unnatural? And then I'm like, no, I explain, no, it is natural. Like you can see it in pretty much all these other. I think every other. It's probably not every other, but it's a lot. You see it a lot in the animal kingdom. I'll say that in many species. Okay, and then like I'll explain to them like, hey, it's not hurting anybody. It's not harming anybody. They can't. They can't control it. They were born this way, so it's not like they're choosing a bad thing. It's just how they are. It doesn't come at the expense of anyone else. It doesn't violate anyone's conscious preferences, right? Except, I will say this. And you're gonna go, well, What about the people who, they're disgusted by it? I already said earlier in the video. Go back and listen. If it comes at the expense, if your goodness comes at the expense of somebody else, then you're wrong. And especially, you're gonna say, well, the gay people or the people who are homophobic. We'll just say homophobic. Okay, the homophobic people, their pleasure of not being disgusted or whatever is affected by the gay people. Again, the gay people can't control it. When you're homosexual, you can't control that. Okay, and for the people who their sexuality will never change. You can't, being a homophobe, you can change. You see what I'm saying? Your hate isn't based on anything other than just being disgusted and just how you were raised. When the gay people, that is how they are. You are denying them to live the same type of life you would be able to when you get married or whatever, just simply because. So it is different. There are different, even though it is preferences, like I just demonstrated, it's different. And that is how you, as an atheist, I can't get you. I'm not God. I can't command you. Objectively, you ought to do that. But again, practically, what God are you going to follow? Which ones? And then whenever you do follow a God, how do you know exactly what He's telling you? You don't even know what He's telling you. You don't know which one to follow. You don't know what He's telling you. At least I, as a person, and I'm Christian, but I don't subscribe to this crap. At least I can build up, actual standards. He says, unless you have a standard to compare it to. Exactly, I'd agree. The atheists have that. You don't. The only thing you have is the philosophical crap that doesn't matter, alt from an is. That's the only thing you have, and you don't even know that. You don't even know it. That's not even what you're honing in on this video. So he's about to do this really stupid elementary demonstration with like a piece of paper and a crooked line, as if I'm like in middle school and somebody's telling me, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, so words you say, you can't take back words you say. Same vibes. So let me go ahead and play that, and I'm going to demonstrate my point with his stupid elementary demonstration. By the way, I'm going to speed this up because, you don't want to waste your day listening to this crap.
Example, if I have a piece of paper and I draw a crooked line. So let's just see here. I wish I had a Sharpie here. Maybe I do. Yeah, I do. And I have a crooked line. Okay, here's my crooked line. How great is that? Put it in the Louvre. How do you know this line is crooked? How do you know? It was just a line, right? But you immediately look at it, you say, that's a crooked, squiggly line. Only because in your mind, you know what a straight line is. So because there you see a crooked line, you're immediately comparing it to the contrast of a perfect straight line. The same happens in morality and ethics. We only know that something is evil and wrong because we have a transcendent standard to compare it to.
Transcendent. You see how he just puts that word in there and just hopes that it's going to do all the heavy lifting for him? Nothing about that demonstration you just showed was transcendent. I'd agree. Great standard. Yeah, you can know something squiggly because it's like, it's not, he didn't really go very in depth. It's not just because it's different than a line. But anyway, what God told you what God told you, like, look, this is straight, and so therefore, since this is a straight line, this is squiggly. No, we just defined it as such. Okay? You agree, and that is a little more concrete than morality and ethics. So, but this is his little demonstration here. So, don't get mad at me. No, It is a little more concrete than ethics, but I'm going to go ahead and I am the one that is accepting it, okay, and going along with his crap. So don't attack me in the comments for this. So yeah, that is a standard. You're right. God didn't tell us anything. Nothing transcendent about that. Stop just interjecting that word as if it's some, that's supposed to be like, oh, well, yeah, we need a transcendent standard. No, we don't. We don't need you don't even have a transcendent standard. You don't.
We as Christians or Jews, we have to explain the problem of evil. We also have to explain natural disasters. That's a toughie.
Same thing.
Atheists, they have to explain everything else. If you are out there and
there is no else, and this gets at the heart of his freaking video. At the beginning, he tried to equate them. Like, look, atheists have this problem, we have this problem. Look, they're on the same level. They're both problems. No, what you mean is atheists have this thing that makes me uncomfortable, and then we have this logical contradiction. No, let's take the word problem out of it. The reason that we say it's a problem is because you say, it's not just because like, oh, I don't like there's evil. Why is there evil? No, it's you have an all-powerful, all-loving God. And really, Alex O'Connor reframed this, and I like this way better, because it's really the power, because you guys do explain, and we could get into Adam and Eve story right now. I'm not, but it doesn't explain it. It doesn't explain why there's evil. It totally goes, I mean, if you believe in evolution, first off, you shouldn't even be, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. If someone wants me to, I will. But it's like it's a logical. If you have an all-loving, all-powerful God is everywhere, and yet there's still this unnecessary amount of suffering. That's how Alex O'Connor reframed it: suffering. Then it's a contradiction, especially for like animals and people that weren't even involved in the fall, but have it way worse. Actually, I mean, people like an animal, they are tortured on a regular basis. Billions of creatures tortured right now, tortured, like absolute torture, and they're going to die from it. They get no good. There's nothing from it. Oh, they're rewarded in heaven. There's a lot of people that don't even think animals go to heaven, but if you did, that doesn't, how in the world does that account for what they did now? And maybe it does to you, but still, that would not like address the suffering that they go through. That's not, I guess you're just going to say that if everyone, well, would you get rewarded for it later in heaven? I guess that would be, really, everyone? Is that what everyone gets? We could get into like, geography and how geography makes you're just lucky, really, if you're a Christian. That is it. I don't care what anyone thinks. You are lucky if you pick the right religion. Period. That goes for anything. Goes for any religion. So I guess he just rewards everyone. I mean, I don't know. You could have all your explanations. Who knows? Everyone who watches this video is probably going to have a different explanation for that.
Out there and you look at this and you are angry and you are mad and you are upset at this horrific act of evil, I would just say, how do you know it's evil? By what standard do you know is it evil? And you know,
again, no, it's not anyone's being, oh, I'm mad. No. That's why you think they're the same, because you're like, well, atheists make me uncomfortable when they say that we don't have objective morality, and atheists also feel uncomfortable because they look out and see that ain't it. It ain't worth feeling uncomfortable. No, it is an error. It is a logical it is not. That does not make sense. Okay, it's totally different. And then next he says like, oh wait, no. First of all, he goes, how would you know it's evil? That's my question to you. How would you know it's evil? What standard? I've already told you. All the natural disasters. That's an example you brought up. Why is that evil? What standard do I have to compare it to? What standard did I give you earlier? That people are going to suffer. And on a mass scale. That's why. That's the standard I'm comparing it to. Did God tell me to do that? So is it objective? No. I didn't. No one told me that. But yes, people can come and disagree with that all they want, and they're going to, just like they disagree with your book. Okay, doesn't make them right. Doesn't make me like objectively right, but I'd say I am. I'd say keep testing I'm going to go, and they're going to say that about well, I don't care about their suffering, or whatever. And I'm going to be like, is it okay to torture you to death? I guess they're going to have to say yes. If they say no, then that's an inconsistency. You see what I'm saying? It's better. We have it better. Atheists. I'm not we, but we atheists. I'm not an atheist. Okay. I'm just going to keep saying that. We have it better because I'm representing them.
Secondly, the atheist has to explain everything else around us. They have to explain life. They have to explain the longest sentence ever recorded, which is DNA. They have to explain the fine-tuning of the universe. They have to explain why the Earth exists. They have to explain physics. They have to explain the laws of reason. They have to explain the law of thermodynamics. They have to explain it all, and they have to say, oh, it's all.
I genuinely don't even know what he means. It's so vague. If all he meant by that was atheists need to explain why those things exist, then he needs to say atheists need to explain why these things exist. And I don't know why he's going down the list of like thermodynamics, DNA. Like, why don't you explain why DNA exists? The Bible doesn't say anything about DNA. Like, I don't even know what point he's trying to make here. The only thing that kind of makes sense is whenever he says like they need to explain the fine tuning of the universe. That's true. That would be something that, like, when you set that up, it's like, well, there's all these constants, and these constants, if they were just a little bit off, then the world wouldn't be how it is at all. Okay, well, let me explain that. You're right. If any of these like laws or whatever were a little off by what, we have like mathematical values for these things or whatever. Yeah, if it were a little off, then the entire universe would be completely different. Does that explain God? No. It just means that those are how whatever the initial singularity, how whatever did that, expanded everything. That's how it ended up. That's how it ended up. It just ended up this way. If it didn't end up this way, then it wouldn't have ended up this way. Like there is no. That is how you explain the fine-tuning bullcrap argument that people like to bring up. So he's right about that. But all this other crap about they must explain why the Earth exists. Okay, maybe that one actually makes a little bit more sense. But they have to explain physics. Why do we have to explain? Why? What do you mean? The reason you have to explain the problem of evil is not because I don't like evil. Again, it's because it's a contradiction. So why would if think of what an atheist worldview is? It's not even a world. It's just like simply, I don't think there is a God, or I don't know. It's really, I guess, it doesn't even have to be that like direct, like I don't think there's a God, but it can kind of, I see atheistic agnosticism like kind of the same almost, where atheists just like don't really. So if they don't know there's a God, okay, well, all of a sudden you're like, oh, now you have to explain physics to me. Explain what physics is, or you're wrong. Shut up, bro. Like, what an idiot. He is just pandering or coping. I don't know which one. I think both. I think mostly pandering, but yeah, he's wrong either way. I genuinely think he was just throwing in buzzwords there like physics, thermodynamics, fine-tuning. I mean, there is no point you could. If the only point I can see him making is atheists must explain why DNA exists, I guess. Why? But then all you got to do is say atheists must explain why how the universe came into being, and then we're in a whole different argument. We're not even talking about morality anymore. We're talking about, and I can go like Aquinas' 5 arguments. I have a whole Google document about those, and it's really complicated. I'm probably not going to do a video on that anytime soon, but that's the only thing he really could have meant is stuff like that. Like, how do we know that the Earth, how did it come into being? That's it. Other than that, if that's not what he meant, I don't even know why I'm wasting my time with him. Genuinely, like, he is so stupid. He has a lot of time on his hands. He knows he can memorize these facts, and then whenever you go fact check him, half the time he's wrong, and then the other half he is not applying it. And it's kind of like that Matt Nuclear dude when he was like, fact, 90% of Africans in Africa sold their own, or 90% of the slaves were sold by their own people. Wow, man, you know so many facts. What does that have to do with systemic racism? Absolutely nothing. Something I just realized, he's using this freaking shooting. I didn't even realize this was what this was about. The recent shooting at a church. This kid, go watch the video he uploaded before. It's actually crazy. He like draws like Heisenberg, a picture of Heisenberg, and he shows it, and then in his diary he's talking about, bro, and he really believed it. He really believed this. It seemed like he thought he was like, I'm dying of lung cancer. He really thought he was like Walter White or something. It was very weird. But Charlie Kirk is using this to, oh look, there's a problem with atheism, blah blah blah. Shut up! What a disgrace! How evil and twisted. Yeah, evil. You're evil. What's my standard of evil? You promoting. You're like, oh, I want to feel good about God and everything at the expense of all the atheists. Yeah, that's what I call evil. I'm kidding, by the way.
Believe in God, then you say evil's no problem. But if you are upset with it, you actually are implying that you believe in God. You might be angry at God. You might be wrestling with God. You might be mad at God. You might think that God is unjust. That's a completely different thing than not believing in God.
You're right. That would be a different thing, but that's not what the problem of evil is. And this video is long as crap because I keep having to reiterate the same exact thing. Cannot talk right now. But it's not. That's not what the problem of evil is. I'm not saying, oh, I don't like that. No, again, the reason that someone would not believe in God is because of the problem of evil. That is how they got there. Because the reason it's a problem, because it's really the contradiction of evil. That's how we really need to start saying it, so that these morons, like, have you never even engaged with what it is? Like, did you just like somebody came up to you and were like, oh, there's the problem of evil, and you just like started in your own head like, I wonder what I think that means, instead of trying to figure out what it actually is. I wonder what I think. Oh, I think it means this. Let's go ahead and make a 10-minute video on it, demonizing atheists. Let's go ahead and do that. Really? What a joke. I'm not going to play it because this video is already insanely long, but he starts going in and starts talking about Christianity is the answer to the problem of evil. Because, like, he thinks of the problem of evil as just, like, the uncomfortableness with evil. That's how he really sees it, the uncomfortableness with evil. And it's not that. So he's like, look, you're uncomfortable with evil. And then Christianity comes and answers that because God saves us from that. Jesus died for us so that we don't have to... I mean, actually, it doesn't even solve any of the evil on the planet. Like, it's the only thing that pertains to this anyway. But you get goodness after it. And that's how it answers it, because even though it doesn't answer anything that we talked about on the world. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, no, Christianity is the thing that is the only time when the contradiction of evil appears. It's not even there until Christianity shows up. So it's not like we have the problem of evil, Christianity comes down and answers it. No, there is nothing. You introduce Christianity. Oh, okay, now there's a problem of evil. You see? He just doesn't get it because he doesn't understand that the problem of evil is not the uncomfortableness with it. Gosh, bro. He talks about Adam and Eve, and it's crazy he's going to do it here. If you went and you asked him anything about like science or in a real debate, he would not just assume that. He would probably be like, yeah, okay, I don't believe in Adam and Eve. Like, it's just a story, bro. It's just like moral crap, bro. Like, I don't know. But video's over. I'll get into this right quick. Okay, if humans sin, right? Well, first off, let's do the evolution. Evolution comes before Adam and Eve, period. Okay, so humans don't exist until, and I have another video on this on my religion channel. Go on my channel here, and then look in like the description or whatever that is, biography. And then check. There's a link. And then go look for my, can the creation account be reconciled with science or something like that is the title of the video. I'll respond to Redeemed Zoomer, if you know who that is. So there is suffering, an unfreaking countable amount of suffering that goes on for, should we say billions of years? It's at least millions, hundreds of millions of years. Okay, so that's already before humans even sin. But then, in addition, whenever the humans do appear on here, and when they do the sinning in this story, they don't even know what good and evil is when they do the sinning. God places an evil serpent, and if he doesn't even place, well, there's an evil serpent in the world before they do anything. So evil exists in the world before they do anything. Already, so we have two things already about evolution and the evil serpent. Okay, that's two. Now, after the evil serpent deceives one of them, and he doesn't even outright lie. He manipulates and is like, well, he meant this, but he didn't know this. And so they don't even see it as them disobeying God. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. God didn't even mean that. Huh. Not only that, but even if they were outright deceived, they don't even know what good and evil is. They don't even know what being deceived is. So they're not outright lied to. They think that they're not disobeying God. And even if they did think they were disobeying God, they wouldn't know what disobeying is, or that disobeying is a bad thing, because they have no knowledge of good or evil. Things just are for them. And so when they do that, so that's already 4. I mean, these just keep stacking. And then when God finally punishes them, what happens? He punishes them and their descendants, period, outright. You are punished. And think about it. What is the world? Whenever, before you even conceive a child, before they're even fashioning in the room, before they have an opportunity to, even if you say, yeah, baby's sitting in the room, which is retarded. But even if you said that they did, well, before that, they're going to be born in this chaotic, sinful, evil world, period, before they have any chance. It's almost like sinning and all this is inherent within humans. And if you say, yeah, that's the point, that's my point. It's inherent. You're not going to change it. There is no choice. There is an illusion of choice. You have no choice but to sin. You have no choice but to be born in a world of sin. You don't even go, do I want to be born in there? No, you're just thrown in here, and the sin is just parsed on, like it's just here. So these things keep adding up. There is no choice. Like, you don't want to talk about sin. Okay, so you're being punished already. And her descendants. You are being punished no matter what, because of what they did, what they were tricked into doing by a serpent that was already there, and they didn't even think they were disobeying. And even if they did think they were disobeying, they have no knowledge of what disobeying even was, or if it was bad. Like, so no, I'm not buying this crap about, well, we deserve it, and God is going to not send us to be tortured for eternity after it, and so that makes it good. No. Screw you, Charlie Kirk. I will be revisiting your channel very often. So, video over now. Hopefully it's not an hour long.